We're going to talk today about solutes and irrigation. So by solutes I mean the things that are dissolved in the water. And what we have dissolved in the water is nutrients, which are the things we want: nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and other nutrients. They come from say manure or from fertilizer. But we also have salt dissolved in the water, normally sodium chloride, and that's a salt plants don't need and we don't like it in irrigation. So what we have here is an irrigation scheme. We've got some farms at the top of the scheme. We've got two farms right at the bottom of the scheme. We've got a water source, a dam, and an irrigation system, and I'm going to start irrigating these farms. But before I irrigate, I'm going to fertilize the fields. So now I've put fertilizer onto my field. The purples are phosphorus, the orange ones are potassium, the green ones are nitrogen, and I'm going to start to irrigate. So I put water into each of my fields. But when you add water, you don't add pure water, because there's always something dissolved in the water. There's always some salt dissolved in the water. You won't taste that salt. There's only a small amount, but it goes into the field with the water. So I'm going to start putting some salt on, just a little bit, to each of the fields. Now, of course, plants are taking water out of the soil all the time, so I'll take some water out, pretend I'm a plant, that water goes back to the air. So we can start sucking water out of all of these. And plants take nutrients up, so we can start taking some of the nutrients out of the soil. I'm taking out the phosphorus. That's the growing plants are using the phosphorus that I put on with my manure or with my fertilizer. I'm taking out some of the nitrogens, taking out the potassium, because they have gone up into the plant. The plants are using water, the plants are using nutrients, but they're still growing, so I've got to keep irrigating, and I'm going to keep irrigating, and of course irrigation adds salt. Okay, so now we get to the end of our season, and what you see is that the colour of the beads has changed. There's not many greens and oranges and purples left. They are nutrients. The plant has got them, but there's plenty of red and yellow left because they are salts and the plant doesn't use them at all. Now what happens? Year after year we put on more and more water in our irrigated fields, and we often put on more water than the plants can use. Sometimes it's the rainy season that does it, and so we get lots of water into our fields, more than we need. So all the water we add to a field must either go up through the plant or through evaporation, or it must go down into the aquifer. And you can see right now that the extra water that's been applied is going through the bottom of the field and into the aquifer. Now it's going very slowly, but this happens year after year after year. And when that happens for a long time, you'll see that the water will start to rise in the lower part of the catchment, or the lower part of the scheme in this case. So year after year, water drips out, the excess water drips out of all the fields at the top and the bottom, and it goes into the aquifer, into the groundwater. Not just the water, the salt goes too. It goes down, it flows down the hill, and it comes up at the bottom. And that's why you tend to often see a white powder down the bottom of the hill in irrigation schemes. It's the salt that's been washed down from the top and it gets washed to the bottom. So this is a real problem. You can see that these fields here now are waterlogged because the excess water from the top of the hill has moved down to the bottom. Also the salt, and yes, even the nitrate, it goes too. Down with the salt because it's what we call mobile, moves with the water. And so all the salts, or most of the salts, end up down the bottom of the hill. And that's the problem of irrigation.